Hi there, I'm Lee Brainerd, and welcome to Soothkeep. This afternoon I'd like to bring you another Rapture Nugget. Today we're going to look at John 16:23, where we read the precious words. In that day you will ask me nothing. Most assuredly I say to you, whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Now we want to have a laser focus on the words, whatever you ask. Now, these words are rarely understood as a prophecy. This verse is rarely understood as a prophecy. We typically apply it to a present day church life. We take the phrase in that day and we're thinking after the cross days in the church age. And I'm not going to say that this application is wrong. I think it's very legitimate. I think that we do have sufficient grounds to apply this promise to our day for our present prayer life. But folks, this is only a partial application of this passage. In fact, the intended focus is the future prophecy focus. And our present battlefield application is the secondary application. Let's look at the context and we'll see that this is actually the case. If you'll notice in verses 16 and 17 and 19, we read the phrase, "A little while, and you will not see me, and again a little while, and you will see me." Now he's talking about his death and his departure to heaven and then his return. Notice again in verse 22, "I will see you again, and your heart will rejoice, and your joy no man will take from you." Again, he's talking about the second coming. At the second coming, the believer is going to receive joy that no one will ever take from them. And notice again in verse 23, "In that day, you will ask me nothing. Most assuredly, I say to you, whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you." In that day, in what day? In the day of the second coming. Notice verse 24 on top of this. "Ask and you will receive, that your joy may be full." In that day, not only will you have joy, but your joy will be filled to overflowing. Now, the purpose of the ask anything you want promise in John 16:23 is that your joy may be full. Notice this is the purpose. God's purpose here is to bless the human being, the redeemed human being. And he's not talking about partial joy. He's not talking about occasional joy. He's not even talking about lots of joy, folks. He's talking about joy that's full, joy that's overflowing. You're not going to have any okay moments in eternity, and you're not going to have any bad moments in eternity. It will always be joy in the fullest measure. Now, this promise, I want to point out, comes from a God who is able to keep his promises. It would be miserable to get up to heaven holding this promise in our heart and then find out that the reality didn't meet the expectation. Heaven, of course, at a mediocre heaven would be way better than hell by any stretch of the imagination. But it wouldn't be the heaven that we expected and that hoped for. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about this, folks. The God who made the promise is able to fulfill the promise in a masterful manner. Ephesians 3:20 says, "Now to him who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think." He's not just able to do exceedingly above all that we can ask or think. He's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think. Now, this is a huge encouragement to us human beings, because we human beings are wired to have big dreams and ambitions and desires and goals and plans. We love to do things. We love to aim for things. We love to attain things. Yet we live in an environment where it's almost impossible to see our dreams and goals and visions and ambitions materialize. And it's impossible, absolutely impossible, to keep them. We're all going to die. Now, in the meantime, while we're trying to have our dreams and visions materialize, We face taxes and we face laws that are inconvenient. We face limitations of 100 kinds. We face rust and decay and wearing out. We fight illness and diseases and injuries and mysterious maladies, and there's garbage in our diets that makes us feel yucky. And most of us are just wearing ourselves out trying to survive. And yet, we have a promise held out to human beings that are not fulfilled. I am going to fulfill you. I am going to fill your joy. Now, what will the fulfillment of this promise look like? The promise that in that day, whatever you ask the Father in my name will be given to you. What's this going to look like? Is he really promising that whatever we ask, we can have? Is he seriously promising whatever we ask, we can have? Folks, I want to say yes, an emphatic yes. God said it. We can take him at his word. We should be approaching this word like we're a 6-year-old kid, trusting that our Father is going to tell us the truth. Now, don't let Gnostic notions that spiritual men are above, way above these earthly desires, these earthly material desires, and don't let that kind of thinking ruin this promise for you. Heaven is not designed for human beings that cease to be human beings. Eternity is not designed for human beings that cease to be human beings. Eternity is made for human beings that get an eternal body. We're still going to be human beings. We're still going to have our eyesight and our hearing and our sense of smell and our sense of taste and our sense of touch. We're still going to have our earthly desires. Now, we may grow beyond them or expand them as we go off into eternity. But we can't cease to be a human being. If you like coffee down here, you're still going to like coffee. And if you're one of those odd ducks that thinks tea is better than coffee, well, you're still going to like tea over coffee in heaven. Now, you are going to be the same you up in the New Jerusalem and down here in the renewed earth and in the new heavens and earth. You're going to be the same you that you are right now. You're going to have a glorified body. That's the big difference. And you're going to have a glorified body in an infinite utopia. And whenever you ask, the Lord is going to be given to you. So let's think about things you might ask in a small realm. Do you want to learn to paint or to learn to play an instrument or sing or to cook because you feel like you don't have time to learn down here or you don't have the talent to learn down here? Then it's yours. Do you want to garden? Do you want to build? Do you want to design? Then it will be yours. Do you want to explore or design and invent? Well, then that's going to be your thing. The sky is the limit. It doesn't matter where you want to go, what you want to ask. And how about some big things? Let's say that you want to ask God for a 10,000 head of cattle on a 10 million acre ranch in Texas Hill Country. No problem. Do you want a horse ranch on 10 million acres of Australian outback? The rolling hilly country outback? Not a problem. Do you want your own virgin North Woods? That's not a problem. Do you want your own Scandinavian fjordland? Well, that's not a problem. Do you want your own starship in your own galaxy? Again, this is not a problem. The sky is the limit. Whatever you ask. Folks, there's no limitations on this. This is a blank checkbook, and you can't ask God anything that's too big or too hard. Jeremiah 32:27 says, "Is anything too hard for me?" Folks, let me just encourage you with my own list of things that I want to have in eternity. I want a coffee bean plantation under a glass dome on Mars. I'm going to call it Red Planet Beans. I want a string of mining operations on a whole bunch of asteroids and moons and planets in our galaxy and in other galaxies. I want a planet that's 5 times the surface area of this planet, that's virgin wilderness. I want my own starship for exploring. I want a massive castle overlooking a fjord. I want a village of homes that's built in a tree house, a bunch of tree houses, and the trees are a mile high. How about a village of homes built on a vertical cliff face where they're just built right onto the face of the cliff, and you have wooden walkways between them? Or how about a village that's built in a swamp on stilts, and that the swamp is millions of square miles? So I've got a bunch of amazing dreams about eternity. And when my life goes south, when my dreams and hopes and ambitions down here, whether worldly ambitions or earthly ambitions or spiritual desire ambitions, get dashed to the ground, I always encourage myself by reminding myself of the promises of Scripture that our light afflictions, which are but for a moment, are going to work for us a far more exceeding and eternal way to glory. I like to remember the promise in John chapter 8, that the things that we are suffering right now are not worthy to be compared to the glories that are going to be revealed to us in eternity. And I like to remember the promises that we are heirs of God and co-heirs of Christ, and we are going to inherit all things with Christ. So I just take a few moments, I embrace these promises, and I think of the things that I'm going to have in eternity, folks. And my heart gets encouraged. It doesn't matter if my whole life goes south. It doesn't matter if my ministry goes belly up and never does what I'd like it to do. It doesn't matter if I lose my house and I lose my car and I lose my income and I lose everything I have and I end up in a FEMA camp eating outdated food products and sleeping on a cot with an old smelly wool blanket. It doesn't matter, folks, because we got glory coming. So, folks, your present sufferings are not worthy to compare to the glory that's going to be revealed to you. God is going to give you the opportunity that whatsoever you ask shall be given to you. And He's not going to give stingy. He's not going to complain that you're asking things too big or too hard. So whatever you ask, there's zero limitations on it, folks. So in conclusion, don't let the trials and weights and discouragements and frustrations of this life get you down. You have an amazing eternity coming. So just faithfully keep putting one foot forwards after the other as you plod along on the heavenly way, ever going onward, ever going upward. Keep running the race. Keep fighting the good fight of faith. I know you get tired. I know you get discouraged. We all do. I do. But just keep your eyes on the prize, folks, and just keep plodding forwards as best as you can, as hard as you can, as long as you can, until either you take your last breath or until that rapture trumpet blows. Keep your eyes on the infinite giver and His infinite reward, whatever you ask. Eyes wide open, brain engaged, heart on fire. We'll see you next time.